It's the 16th of July, and this is your News Bite brought to you by eNCA.com. I'm Marcel Gordon, and in your news today, Bafana and Sundowns captain Ronwen says Jayden Adams will forever remain a part of their team. Joburg only has enough cash to cover 12 days, but the mayor says not to worry. And New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani hails leadership lessons from Madiba. South Africa's footballing community paid tribute to Bafana and Sundowns star Jayden Adams in his hometown of Stellenbosch on Thursday. The talented 25-year-old died on Saturday, just a few weeks after helping Bafana reach the World Cup knockout stage for the very first time. Family, friends, teammates and supporters gathered in the Stellenbosch town hall. Among them was Bafana and Sundowns captain Ronwen.
Jayden, your contribution to South African football, thank you. Be it adding the second star for Mamelodi Sundowns, qualifying and participating at the World Cup, bringing a bronze medal for Bafana at AFCON. We will miss your quality, your passes, your vision and your brotherhood. Mr. Zay, Private Zed, Grootman, we will never forget you. We will carry you in our hearts, carry you on our sleeve, carry you on this badge, and forever you will remain part of us.
The final phase of Rand Water's planned maintenance is expected to last just 12 hours, but the effects could linger well beyond the weekend, says Joburg Water spokesperson Nombuso Shabalala. And as Joburg residents have become accustomed to, we've been warned that some areas are likely to recover faster than others.
Recovery does take a couple of days, and it's important to note that systems do recover differently. So, for instance, in the first phase of the maintenance, we noticed that some systems were not really affected. So your Sandton system and your Soweto systems recovered quite quickly. So we do anticipate that certain systems that do take longer, such as our Midrand systems, are likely to take a couple of days to recover. This also includes our Commando system, which comprises of Brixton, Crosby and Hurstville. They will take a couple of days to recover after Rand Water has completed the maintenance. But maybe important to mention as well, this second phase of maintenance is much less intense in duration, scale and intensity as compared to the first one, which lasted for 4 days. So this starts tomorrow at 7 in the morning and it concludes at 7 in the evening. So the recovery, we anticipate that the recovery will be quicker.
Well, that will be little comfort to Joburg residents in the south of the city, who on Thursday morning woke up to a trickle of water already. But that's got to do with a, quote, widespread electrical trip which impacted Rand Water's Eikenhof pumping station. Meanwhile, the city of Joburg is looking forward to payday, just like you and me, it seems, because it seems the city only has enough cash to cover costs for 12 days. But Joburg Mayor Dada Morero says they're just waiting for those funds to come through from Treasury. He says much of the money will go towards paying Eskom and Rand Water.
But the coverage that we have is at least 12 days, meaning that should anything happen, we only have sufficient finance to support whatever happens for 12 days. It's normal in government that at times your cash coverage, because you are self-funding, you will find yourself not having sufficient coverage for a month. We are required to have at least 32 days and above for cash coverage. So we are working hard to ensure that our collection rate can ensure that we've got sufficient days for cash coverage. But by the way, it doesn't mean you have nothing. And I think journalists, I would want to encourage you also to do a bit of research on some of the questions we ask. National Treasury, we have finalized the issues with National Treasury. We are just awaiting for the transfer of equitable share, which should be coming possibly by this week, so that we can then settle the Eskom account. So with what we are receiving, we'll then split between Eskom at about 2.6 or 2.4 billion and 960 for Rand Water.
A humanitarian crisis is unfolding outside the Malawian consulate in Joburg, where hundreds of Malawian nationals remain stranded as they continue to wait to be repatriated. Humanitarian groups have accused Malawian authorities of failing to provide adequate shelter, food, and basic sanitation. It's just another worrying story stemming from anti-illegal migration protests in South Africa, which has made headlines across the world. Thousands of nationals from other African countries have left the country over the last few months. Meanwhile, the South African presidency has accused Ghana and Nigeria of leading a campaign to isolate South Africa on the continent and internationally. eNCA's Moloko Moloto reports from the Union Buildings.
The presidency insists South Africa remains firmly engaged with both the African continent and the broader international community, despite what it describes as attempts to undermine its standing. Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya says any campaign to isolate Pretoria is destined to fail.
We've taken note of the campaign, primarily driven by Ghana and to a lesser extent Nigeria, but not as concerted as Ghana has. And that campaign is faltering, and we're going to reject that campaign, and we're going to assert our rightful position, not only on the continent, but amongst the global community.
Responding to calls by some individuals in Ghana and Nigeria to expropriate South African companies operating there, Magwenya dismissed the threats.
And so no one is doing anyone a favor here. It's a mutually beneficial trade relationship that benefits all of us.
Officials at the Ghanaian and Nigerian High Commissions referred our inquiries to their respective High Commissioners, who could not be reached for comment.
The MPA says it will do everything possible to challenge Timothy Omotoso's acquittal. It's been granted leave to appeal by the SCA and argues that this is about addressing legal issues and ensuring that the rights of GBV victims are protected. Omotoso was acquitted of rape, human trafficking and racketeering in April of last year and has since been deported back to Nigeria. Here's MPA spokesperson Kaiser Khanyago.
We will do everything that we need to do. If we have to bolster the team or get new people to deal with this matter, we will do so. Because at the end of it all, it is the interest of the victims, especially the victims of GBVF, that we have got to look at. Because the national director was worried about the fact that this really was a big blow, not only to us as the NPA, but also to the victims of GBVF. Therefore, we will do everything in our power. If we have to bolster it, if we have to change the legal team, we will do so. But the first hurdle that we've got to jump is to do the appeal itself. I believe that there was a blunder that was done, if it was, but also the matters of law that needed to be dealt with. But secondly, we also worried about the victims of GBVF, especially at the time when this country has declared GBVF as a pandemic. Therefore, we believe that the interest of the victims has to be dealt with also, and then make sure that they are protected.
Further field tensions between the US and Iran are escalating once again, with Washington launching a fresh wave of strikes on Iranian military targets near the Strait of Hormuz. US President Donald Trump has warned Tehran that it, quote, better behave. But Iran insists it has no reason to honor last month's ceasefire if it no longer serves its interests. At the same time, the Pentagon is taking a new approach to military readiness, one that starts with a blood test. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, remember him? We haven't heard from him in a while. Well, he's announced that military personnel aged 30 and older will now be screened for low testosterone as part of their annual health checks. Those found to be deficient will be offered voluntary hormone replacement therapy.
I'm authorizing a new screening program for testosterone deficiency for our service members, ensuring you have the right testosterone levels to operate at your absolute best. Because it's well-established science that as we age, testosterone levels often naturally drop. This initiative, it's not about artificial enhancement. It's about restoring and optimizing your natural capabilities, protecting your longevity, and ensuring you have the biological foundation required to sustain the fight. As we know, the modern battlefield is brutal and unrelenting. It requires and demands maximum psychological and mental readiness. And by addressing these health markers early, We're keeping you on the leading edge of lethality and giving you the same level of support that you give this nation, the absolute best.
In other news, we're keeping an eye on yet more cars are being recalled in South Africa. This time it's Ford who's recalling certain 2026 models. The National Consumer Commission says the affected vehicles were sold between October last year and June of this year. The cars have an automatic transmission which may have a defect. And a Kenyan court has rejected a bid by Rastafarians to use marijuana for religious purposes. It's ruled that the community failed to prove the drug is an essential part of their faith. The decision means the country's strict cannabis laws remain in force, with possession still carrying penalties of up to 10 years in prison with hefty fines. And on to the world of sports. England manager Thomas Tuchel has defended his tactics after the Three Lions World Cup dream ended in heartbreak against Argentina in Wednesday night semi-final. England looked on course for their first World Cup final since 1966 after Anthony Gordon's early second-half opener in Atlanta. But Tuchel's side sat back, and he then brought on defensive players as his substitutes, allowing Argentina to pile on the pressure before late goals resulted in a dramatic 2-1 victory.
No, I believe that's just the nature of the game. As soon as you lose, you get criticized. It's just what it is. And you get criticized after. No one knows what would have happened if we made different decisions. So it makes no sense to engage in that and lose my head. I'm responsible for them. I took them, so I take the criticism. That's just the way it is.
News from the world of rugby is that record-breaking Test match referee Aimee Barrett-Theron has stood down from officiating with immediate effect. The 39-year-old announced she will be unavailable for the foreseeable future after being diagnosed with breast cancer. Barrett-Theron most recently took charge of the match between South Africa A and Zimbabwe at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. In a statement, she says the good news is that her cancer is treatable and that she's working with an incredible team of specialists with the goal of getting her healthy and back on the field in a few months' time. And finally, for many around the world, Nelson Mandela was not just a statesman. He is the first leader who showed that politics can change lives. In the lead up to this year's Nelson Mandela Day, New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani gave the inaugural lecture of the Nelson Mandela Global Leadership Forum. He reflected on growing up in Cape Town in the 1990s, where Madiba was not simply South Africa's president.
For a 5-year-old in 1996 Cape Town, who saw Madiba's face on banners waving from building facades, he represented a different kind of first altogether. Madiba was the first president I ever knew, a man who it seemed had the power to change the world. It's difficult to explain what that meant as a child, so let me put it this way. Next to my childhood fridge magnets of David Seaman, Sylvan Wiltord, and the entire Arsenal team, was a magnet of Madiba in a Bafana Bafana kit. When I return to those early years of my life, the lesson I remember most is that justice must be more than an ideal. It must be material. And I remember a leader, larger than life, who saw the same world I was just starting to glimpse and was trying, always trying, to use his power to change it. In the years before his death, Madiba was elevated into a pantheon beyond mere mortals. Today, the Nobel Peace Center describes him as, quote, a messiah for millions of people. If anyone was deserving of such reverence, it was Madiba. Tonight, as we gather to recommit ourselves to what Madiba's leadership showed could be made possible, we must also recognize that to treat him as more myth than man is to do him a grave disservice. It is to sanctify a man who once famously said, I am not a saint, unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying. What a gift it is that Madiba was flawed like each of us. For it is impossible to emulate a Messiah. All one can do is worship. And it is his humanity that allows us to look towards the next generation of leaders and say sincerely, you too can be Madiba.
And that's how we wrap today's News Bite. For developments in these and more, keep an eye on eNCA.com and DSTV channel 403.